What if a simple, unassuming meal revealed a truth long buried by the sands of time? Could one small object, a forgotten relic, unlock a chapter of your life you thought was lost forever? Elizabeth Harrington was a name that resounded with power, prestige, and wealth. To the outside world, she was a titan of industry, a widow who had built an empire sprawling across continents. But to those who truly knew her, Elizabeth was a woman haunted by a shadow of loneliness. Behind the dazzling headlines and glittering parties, there existed a mother, a grieving mother, yearning for the one thing her billions could never buy, her daughter Lily. 2 decades earlier, Lily had vanished without a trace from a sunny park in California. It was a picture-perfect afternoon, full of laughter and warmth, until it wasn't. That day, Elizabeth's world crumbled into shards of unanswered questions and sleepless, tear-soaked nights. Despite relentless efforts, private investigators, public pleas, and exhaustive searches, Lily had never been found. Over time, Elizabeth had learned to coexist with the pain, tucking it away behind the polished mask of her public life. But deep down, her heart never stopped searching. Every child's laughter, every fleeting glimpse of a young girl with soft brown hair, pulled at her soul. It was an unspoken ache, a void that no accomplishment, no accolade, could ever fill. After years of avoiding California, the place that had robbed her of joy, Elizabeth made the bold decision to return. It wasn't planned or strategic, it was instinctual. Something deep within her whispered that she had unfinished business with this land. One breezy afternoon, Elizabeth felt the urge to break from her routine of fine dining and extravagant meals. She craved simplicity, humanity, something raw and real. Driving aimlessly through the streets of her new neighborhood, her eyes landed on a quaint little diner. Its bright red sign cheerfully announced its name, Sunnyside Eats. The place was alive with warmth and chatter, families, friends, and the comforting hum of everyday life. It was worlds apart from the cold, pristine settings Elizabeth was accustomed to. As she stepped inside, a soft chime of a bell announced her arrival. She chose a cozy corner booth, a spot that gave her a view of the entire room while still offering a sense of privacy. A young waitress in her early 20s approached her table. Her uniform was modest, slightly wrinkled but neat, and her smile carried an unspoken weariness. Yet her warmth was undeniable. "Good afternoon, ma'am," she greeted, her voice kind but subdued. "What can I get started for you?" Elizabeth glanced up, and for the briefest moment, time seemed to pause. There was something achingly familiar about the waitress's soft brown eyes, something that stirred a long-dormant memory. Shaking off the feeling, she replied with a calm but steady voice, "Just coffee for now. Thank you." As the waitress walked away, Elizabeth found herself unable to look away. She watched the young woman glide between tables, her movements graceful and efficient. There was a quiet strength in her demeanor, a resilience that resonated deeply with Elizabeth. When the waitress returned with a steaming cup of coffee, a glimmer of gold caught Elizabeth's eye. Around the young woman's neck hung a delicate locket, its intricate floral design gleaming softly under the diner's fluorescent lights. Elizabeth's breath hitched. "That's a beautiful locket," she said, her voice trembling ever so slightly. The waitress instinctively touched the locket, her fingers brushing against its smooth surface. "Thank you," she said with a faint smile. "It's really special to me." Elizabeth leaned forward, her pulse quickening. "If you don't mind me asking, where did you get it?" The young woman's smile wavered, but she answered. "It was a birthday gift from my mom when I was really little. I don't remember much about her. I grew up in foster care. But this is the one thing of hers I've always kept." Foster care. The words echoed in Elizabeth's mind like a thunderclap. Could it be possible? As the waitress walked away to tend to another table, Elizabeth's hands trembled. Reaching into her purse, she pulled out a photograph she had carried for 2 decades, a photo worn with time but precious beyond words. In it, Elizabeth stood with her daughter, Lily, on her 5th birthday. Lily held a tiny locket identical to the one the waitress now wore. When the waitress returned, Elizabeth could no longer contain herself. I know this might sound strange, but could you sit with me for a moment? The young woman hesitated, her brow furrowing in concern. Is everything okay, ma'am? Elizabeth nodded, though her heart was racing. Please, just take a look at this. Sliding the photograph across the table, Elizabeth held her breath as the waitress picked it up. The young woman's expression shifted as her eyes fell on the image. Her fingers grazed the locket in the photo, its design unmistakably identical to the one she wore around her neck. Her brow furrowed deeper, confusion and curiosity mingling in her gaze. This, she began, her voice barely above a whisper. Elizabeth's heart pounded as hope, fear, and an overwhelming surge of emotion collided within her. Could this young woman, this stranger in a bustling diner, be the daughter she had lost so long ago? Anna's eyes widened, darting back and forth between the photograph and Elizabeth's tear-streaked face. Her voice trembled as she whispered, This little girl looks just like me when I was young." Tears welled up in Elizabeth's eyes, spilling over as she struggled to keep her voice steady. "That's because it is you," she said, her voice cracking under the weight of her emotions. "You're my daughter. You're my Lily." The waitress, Anna, froze, her hand flying to her mouth as her breath hitched. Her mind was reeling, disbelief and confusion flooding her thoughts. No, that can't be. My name is Anna. I don't have a family," she stammered, her voice shaky and filled with doubt. Elizabeth leaned forward, her hands trembling as they reached across the table. "Anna was Lily's nickname," she said softly. "I used to call you that all the time when you were little." Anna sat paralyzed, her thoughts racing in a chaotic whirlwind. How could this be possible?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. My foster mom, told me my real parents abandoned me." Elizabeth's head shook vigorously, her voice rising with an urgency born of heartbreak. "I never abandoned you, Lily. You were taken from me. I've spent my entire life looking for you, praying I'd find you one day." Anna's hand instinctively clutched the small gold locket around her neck, her fingers brushing against its familiar ridges. Tears filled her eyes, spilling onto her cheeks as her voice faltered. I don't know what to say," she admitted, her voice trembling. Elizabeth slid out of the booth, her arms outstretched, desperation and love pouring from every fiber of her being. "You don't have to say anything, my darling," she said, her voice choked with emotion. "Just let me hold you. My Lily." For a moment, Anna hesitated, the weight of 2 decades of confusion and longing pressing down on her chest. Then, as though a dam had burst, she crumbled, rushing into Elizabeth's arms. Tears streamed down her face as she buried herself in the warmth of her mother's embrace. "Mom," she whispered, her voice breaking with emotion. "Yes, my love," Elizabeth replied, her own tears falling freely as she clung tightly to her daughter. "It's me. And I'm never letting you go again." The diner around them seemed to fade away, the bustling chatter and clinking dishes replaced by the sound of 2 hearts reconnecting after years of unimaginable loss. As they pulled apart, Anna stared at Elizabeth with wide, searching eyes. "What happens now?" she asked, her voice barely audible. How do we even start after everything that's happened?" Elizabeth took a deep, shaky breath, her hand reaching out to gently cup Anna's face. "We take it one moment at a time," she said softly. "I know it won't be easy. Years of pain and unanswered questions don't disappear overnight. But what matters is that we've found each other. And I promise you, Lily, I will spend every single day making up for the time we lost." Anna's grip tightened on the photograph in her hand, her gaze flickering between the image and Elizabeth. Her mind was a tangled web of disbelief, hope, and heartbreak. "It's just so much to process," she admitted, her voice breaking. "All my life, I believed I wasn't wanted, that my family didn't care. And now, here you are, telling me you've been searching for me this whole time." Elizabeth reached across the table once more, taking Anna's hands in her own. "I never stopped searching," she said firmly, her voice filled with conviction. "You were ripped away from me in a way I couldn't understand. I hired the best detectives, offered endless rewards, and begged the universe for answers. But it was like you had vanished into thin air. And now, after all this time, to find you here alive, sitting in front of me, it's a miracle I never thought I'd have. Anna's thoughts drifted back to her fragmented memories of childhood. She recalled faint images of a cozy home, a vibrant garden where she used to play, and the scent of roses that lingered in the air. But those fleeting moments were overshadowed by the cold, sterile walls of the foster homes she'd grown up in. I always believed I was abandoned, she said quietly, her voice tinged with a sadness that had been buried for years. The foster system wasn't kind to me. I learned early on not to expect much from anyone. I got my first job as a waitress when I was 16, and I've been working ever since, just trying to survive. Elizabeth's heart broke anew as she listened, each word a dagger to her soul. I can't imagine the pain you went through, she said, her voice thick with regret. If I had known if I had found you sooner, none of this would have happened. You would have had the life you deserved, the love, the safety, everything I wanted to give you. Her voice faltered, tears streaming down her face once more. I'm so sorry, my darling. I failed you. But I swear to you now, I will spend the rest of my life making it right. Anna looked down, her fingers still clutching the locket around her neck. For the first time, the weight of her past felt lighter, as though years of unanswered questions were finally beginning to find resolution. Maybe, she began, her voice hesitant, maybe this is where we start. Right here, in this diner, over coffee and a photograph. Maybe we don't have all the answers yet, but we have each other. Elizabeth smiled through her tears, her heart swelling with a mixture of relief and joy. Yes, Lily, she said softly. We have each other. And that's all that matters now.